If you have any questions about anything you see in today's roadmap presentation, please just post a question in the QA. If for some reason we don't have time to answer your question, we will follow up with you afterwards. So today I'm going to talk about Action Builder, which we've spoken about for the last couple of roadmaps, but we've got some exciting updates to share with you. We have been working on adding custom domains and SEO features for a variety of capabilities. So I'm going to talk to you about that. We've got an update on app analytics and app monitoring capabilities that we've been working on. We've got some push notification improvements, an update on the slider component, an app solution update. And I think we've also managed to squeeze in something about our upcoming multi-step form capabilities as well. So, if you've attended the last Fliplet Summit, you would have heard about our Action or Workflow Builder. The whole purpose of our Action Builder is it's easy to use. It will enable you to integrate with different tools. It'll enable you to construct new features from kind of blocks or steps. For example, the steps could be triggers, when to kind of start the workflow or action, and modules, which are what the action's able to do. It's going to be similar in some ways if you've used Power Automate or Zapier, two very popular workflow tools. And if you're familiar with them, you'll probably feel quite at home using the new Fliplet Action Builder. So what's changing? So Fliplet's had actions for many years now. Let's just call it Actions version 1, and they're server-side only. So the great thing about them is they're secure. You can schedule them. They have full access to your app, so you don't have to do anything special. They have some limitations about what they can do, and they're kind of a low-code environment. You do have to know code and be able to code them, but it can leverage existing Fliplet features, so you don't have to write all the code yourself. Now, how is version 1 different to version 2? So version 2 will add the ability for your actions to run offline on the device. That, I think, is going to be huge. It'll also mean that they're going to be much faster to execute, because now you have the option of, do I wait for the server to run them, or do I run them on the local device? They're going to be much faster to create, because unlike what I mentioned about Actions V1 being code-based, Actions V2 will have pre-built modules and triggers. You'll also be able to create your own module if we don't have the module that you want, but we hope that most of the kind of common modules will already be pre-built, ready to go, and you won't have to touch anything that looks like code in Actions V2. There's going to be an API with a really easy configuration language. So if you want to use our API, you can. You don't have to. There will be an interface, and the UI will be full drag and drop. It'll have templates for popular actions. It'll have the ability for test and publish, and it will be no code. But actually, I've got an even more exciting update on the UI to share with you. But before I talk too much about other things that we've been working on in relation to actions, let's pause and just talk about how you can use them. So the first thing is, you could use an action that when a data source is created, that you create, update, delete other data sources. So this is going to be a very powerful capability. It'll mean that you can basically get Fliplet to kind of do data management for you via actions. Another scenario is you'll be able to read information from data sources such as profile data or data from somewhere else, and then use that information to actually direct the user to different parts of your app. So for example, if a user hasn't completed onboarding according to their profile data, send them to the onboarding screen. Or if a user hasn't set their dietary preferences for the event yet, forward them to the dietary preferences screen. A third example would be to read data, then using logic such as if loops, while loops, for loops, determine what to send in an email or push notification. This is something that customers regularly come to us at the moment and ask us to write custom code for. And this is something that Actions will enable you to do without writing code. We're really excited about putting that particular capability in the hands of all of our customers, whether they're technical or not. Fourth scenario will be the ability to read form values, then using logic such as loops or if statements, alter a screen's content or functionality. So this could be an example of a read information about the user type, and then based on the user's privileges, hide or show different capabilities on the current screen. And a fifth example is use the data that's passed into a screen through a link to alter the screen's content or functionality. Again, without having to kind of fall back to code, which is what you would have to do at the moment to kind of alter the screen's content or functionality, you'll now be able to use an action. And then finally, read form values, then using logic, read data from another data source, and then generate an email or a push notification based on the various information that's been received and send it. So again, very similar to example 3, but just adding in a couple of more steps. And thank you very much for sending over the first question. And I will make sure that I get back to that before we wrap up today's roadmap presentation. So how will you be able to build and manage actions? So we've been thinking a lot about how we deliver a really easy to use interface to particularly non-technical, non-developers that like to build apps with Fliplet Studio. And what we've realized is this is probably going to be a perfect use case for something that uses AI. So we're currently experimenting with how you can literally just use a chat type interface and ask AI to build the action for you. And our experiences to date and looking at other solutions in the market make us very confident that we're going to be able to deliver this. And we're just starting to experiment with this now. What we anticipate the AI will be able to do is it will help you to design and configure your actions. So instead of you having to learn what all of the different modules and all the different triggers do, we're going to teach AI, and then AI will propose suggested actions to you made up of modules and triggers. Of course, you will then be able to alter the actions if you want as well. You can either tell AI, make these changes for me, or alternatively, we may give you an interface for making those changes. And then finally, AI will also be able to help detect problems. So it will help you to troubleshoot and test. It'll be able to give you guidance around how do you test this action. It'll also help you to diagnose if there's problems. And if you tell it, hey, this isn't working the way I expect, it'll be able to come up with suggestions and actually alter what the action does for you. We believe this could be an amazing interface for actions, and much better than what we've seen in the past, where you have to kind of drag and drop and link things and click on the boxes to configure them, etc. There's a lot of learning for the end user. We believe that AI will be able to do a fantastic job at this. We're also going to enable actions to have the ability to be tested and published, which means you get some version control. So if your app already has a live action that, for example, is sending an email to the app administrators every time a new user signs up, but you want to improve it, you want to determine who the email goes to and add some additional steps into your action, you'll be able to do that in the test version, while the published version is what's being used by the live app. Actions will have triggers and settings that will decide when they will run. So one of the exciting opportunities that we're bringing with actions, which we've had in Actions V1, but it's been a bit of a hidden feature, is the ability for you to trigger actions of a whole range of different capabilities, like log entries, interactions with different features inside screens on your app, but also you'll be able to configure buttons that configure actions as well. So there's lots of different ways you can configure actions along with them being executed on a schedule. And then finally, actions will log their details to assist with troubleshooting. And this is something we've been putting quite a lot of emphasis on in our development at the moment, which is exactly what information do we need to log so that it's very easy to go and figure out if an action's not doing what it should be doing, why, and what do we need to do to fix it. So we're really excited that actions will accelerate more complicated apps and reduce a significant amount of code, and hopefully reduce the amount of services that our customers have to purchase from us to get some of these features inside their apps. So we've also been working on adding in a couple of custom domain capabilities into Fliplet and SEO features. So firstly, let me talk about email domain. So at the moment, we're currently testing this feature, but what it will mean is that customers are able to specify a custom email domain inside their Fliplet organization settings. This means that any email sent from any of the apps inside your organization will come from a default email address that you specify that is coming from a domain that you've linked to Fliplet. We are not currently planning to allow customers to have multiple email domains or different email addresses associated with each app. Main reason why we're not assuming we should do that is because we don't believe that on a per app basis, people want to be configuring email domains and email accounts. But if you disagree and you think, no, I have some reasons why I would want different apps to be using different email domains or different email addresses, please get in touch. Keep in mind, this isn't this is the from email address that you'll be able to configure, not the reply to. So it means that if I get an email from, apps@company.com, and I then hit reply, it'll actually go to the reply address, which doesn't have to be the from address. So I'm only mentioning that because, of course, you would want any replies to your emails to potentially go to different places depending on the app, but that doesn't mean the actual from email address has to be different. Okay, we've also been working on adding web domains to web apps. And this means that you can specify a custom domain for your web app. We're currently testing this feature with a customer. We're excited about it. It still needs a bit more work before it's ready to be handed out to all of our other customers, but we're excited to see what our customers are able to do with this. And of course, with adding custom domains, also became the necessity to start taking SEO settings a bit more seriously inside Fliplet. So we've added the ability for you to specify a number of SEO settings at an app or an individual screen level. This means that if you turn these features on, Fliplet will generate a sitemap and a robots file for search engines related to your specific web app. And you'll also be able to configure custom headers that are sometimes required for third-party services such as social media or domain verification, which is a feature we haven't been able to offer before. So we're very excited about these different features. So how will they benefit your apps? Well, it'll enable you to send emails from your domain name instead of Fliplet's default, which is system@fliplet.com. Lots of our customers don't like the fact that emails from our apps come from this email address, and this will mean that you can be sure that customers will not receive emails from our domain, which helps customers to white label their apps and hide the fact that they're using Fliplet even more. And then finally, you'll also be able to host web apps on your domain name and optimize for SEO. So you'll be able to use top-level domains like company.com or subdomains like site.company.com. It's entirely up to you. You'll be able to enable and disable whether or not search engines can crawl your apps. You'll be able to use tools like Google Search Console, which is a tool from Google to help analyze your web app. If you've turned on the SEO features, determine if there's any SEO issues and fix them. And then you'll be able to use third-party tools that require adding in headers. So web and email domain will enable apps to be completely white labeled by our customers, which is something that they've wanted for a while. And integration with search engines, we believe, will help to increase the amount of traffic apps receive, particularly from search engines. Moving on to app analytics. So we've been working on app analytics updates for a while. This is going to be going live very soon, by the way. We're going to be adding a couple of additional data points. We're going to be adding returning users. We're going to be adding average sessions per user and average session duration. We're going to be adding information about what type of operating system and browser people are using. We're going to be adding in what types of communications were sent by your app, so you can see how many notifications, emails, or SMSs your app sent, or text messages, depending on where you are in the world. And the interactions report will have device added, so that you're able to determine, okay, this many people on iOS devices are doing this action, but on Android, they're using their screen differently and they're doing different actions, which we think will help to lead to increased optimization for maybe different device types, such as web apps, mobile apps. We're also working on an advanced app analytics feature. So I'm sure most people on this call are aware that AI is getting incredibly good at analyzing data, and we want to help customers by giving them an AI-powered analytics tool. And this will be initially given anonymous information about your app's usage data, and it will produce a report which includes intelligent suggestions about how you can improve your app. You'll be able to ask AI follow-up questions, and you'll be able to ask AI how to, say, assess problems that you've detected with your app. So, for example, why aren't more people accessing this screen? And then it might come up with some ideas. The other really exciting thing that isn't actually listed on this slide is that not only when you ask follow-up questions, you can also tell it how to create, how to visualize the data. So, for example, you could say, generate a new chart or a new table for me that gives me this information analyzed this way. and then it will be able to reprocess the data that we provided to AI and give you a potentially completely custom piece of information with different calculations included. So I'm really exciting, and I think that we've had a number of customers over the years come and ask us like, hey, can you build us new reporting screens? Can you build us new dashboards? I believe that this could be the start of us empowering customers with incredibly advanced data processing capabilities. And we're starting with app analytics because it's ubiquitous. We know how the data works, and it's the same for all apps on Fliplet. And we believe that this feature will really help customers who maybe are a bit overwhelmed or who struggle with understanding, okay, this is my app's usage data, but what do I do now? AI, we believe, will be able to bridge the gap and convert it into meaningful, useful information. We're going to be adding two types of monitoring capabilities, app health monitoring and log monitoring. App health monitoring is a tool that will continuously monitor apps for configuration issues, compliance issues, and errors that are occurring within the app. This is going to be really helpful in ensuring that you're confident your app is running and it's working well without having to constantly test it or without waiting for support inquiries to come in to alert you to issues. We're going to initially start by launching this with a small number of checks with the goal of working closely with customers to kind of add additional checks over time. We're also going to be adding in a separate monitoring tool that focuses purely on log monitoring. And that's because our logs have different data in them. So the log monitoring tool will help to detect like security issues, such as a user continuously unable to log in, suggesting that maybe somebody's trying to guess their password. It'll detect anything related to integration issues or API token issues. It'll detect action-related issues such as missed schedule integration or action errors getting returned to the logs. It'll also point out if there are data transfer errors that occur during API integrations. All of these things will help to detect integration and action issues. And then we've also got unusual behavior. For example, unexpected usage of a screen that is an anomaly. It is not normal that that screen is getting as much usage, and that will then highlight kind of things that people may want to go and investigate. This is basically going to be continuously analyzing your logs, and if it detects anything that doesn't look right, it'll kind of flag it to you, as well as surfacing any kind of constant errors. Again, this will work the same way. We'll deliver this feature initially with a core set of checks, and then over time, we're going to work with our customers to improve the checks. I can see that a couple of other questions have come in, so I really appreciate it. Please keep sending in the questions, and I'll be answering them very soon. We've been working on a number of notification improvements. One of the key things that has been missing from Fliplet for a long time is an easy way to actually test real push notifications. And now you can. So when your app in preview mode inside Fliplet Studio sends notifications, they will be popping up as if Fliplet Studio is delivering them. You'll know that they're from your test app because you will have triggered them, and they'll have information that I think they mention the name of the app that they came from so that you don't get confused which app's sending you test notifications. This is a great, easy way without you having to kind of use a mobile device to actually test that push notifications are going to work. Although obviously push notifications look a bit different on different platforms. It's still a much better test than having to kind of guess or launch your app. And we've also been working on adding in test notifications into Fliplet Viewer, which I believe is very close to becoming available as well. So this will mean you'll be able to test your push notifications inside Fliplet Studio via preview mode, and you'll also be able to test push notifications via Fliplet Viewer. Sorry, I meant to say Fliplet Studio preview mode and Fliplet Viewer. We also have other improvements that we're making, which is that notifications for Fliplet Studio users via Fliplet Viewer and Studio will also be adding in additional notification types, such as notifying you when kind of key analytics milestones from analytics are hit, where possible issues are detected in the log or health monitoring features, as well as notifying when new features are launched, or there's maintenance windows where we need to do maintenance on certain parts of Fliplet, or if you're getting close to hitting any of your plan limits, you'll now receive the warnings via push notification as well. We've also been working on a new in-app notification capability that we're calling the notification framework. The notification framework gives you an interface. You can see a screenshot of it there where you can review and edit notifications within apps. You can also create new notifications and you can view notifications that have been queued and sent. It's a very capable tool. It does require a little bit of code to configure it, but we've tried to keep the amount of code to a minimum. This is kind of an interim step before we have the action builder ready, where it'll probably supersede this, but this is an incredibly powerful feature. And if you're considering adding more notifications into your app now or in the future, you might want to get in touch with the customer success team and ask them if they can either demo this to you or give you a copy of it, because the majority of advanced notification capabilities now can be configured directly in an interface within your apps. We have recently launched our new slider component. The slider component has actually been built on a stack of changes that we've been making to Fliplet Studio's drag and drop capabilities behind the scenes for many, many months. The new slider enables you to just completely lay out each slide using all of the features available inside Fliplet Studio, whereas our current slider component allows you to just configure a couple of pieces of information and that's it. So if you want each slide, as these screenshots show, to be completely different, you couldn't do that with our current component. You can now. And we believe this adds significant additional functionality to the slider component. Because not only can you now lay out the slides however you want, you also get a lot more control about where they sit on the page, meaning that you can potentially start to use a slider to, say, deliver some form of additional navigation capabilities as well, like a horizontal navigation or something. There's lots of exciting things. We're going to be working on a whole set of new screen templates that utilize the slider component to help customers transition over to using this new feature. And building on top of the slider component, we're going to use it to deliver multi-step forms. So a multi-step form is where a form has multiple parts to it and typically has a progress bar. You've seen these probably many times where you're filling in a survey and it's made up of 10 screens or something like that. We're going to use the slider component to deliver multiple forms, and then we're going to link them all up. And the advantage of using the slider component is you can put any features that you want on the slides in between as well. So you could have kind of initial information collected, then you could have a video, then you could have some more data collected in another form, then you could have some text and a PDF, then you could have another form. You can combine any of the features in any way that you want. So this is something that we're just in the planning stage of now, but we're really excited. And then just a quick update on app solutions. So firstly, in the last 6 months, we've updated our event single solution. It now has a new setup screen that makes it much faster to get started. And if you want, AI can generate some placeholder material to put in your agenda that will look similar to it'll look relevant to the type of event you've told the setup screen you're going to be running. We have other new optional AI-driven features as well, such as bio generation. The admin screens have text and image generation in there as well for generating event info. You can see an example of one of the images that AI generated on the right-hand side. We've also built a universal search. This has been a feature lots of customers have been requesting for a really long time, but it's actually a really complicated problem to solve for, because a search feature that searches across multiple data sources where the data is in a different format in each data source is actually a really hard problem to solve. We've spoken to many, many customers over the last probably 5 or 6 years about how can we just have a single search screen, and then AI popped up and gave us a really powerful way to deliver this feature. So it's very intelligent. It analyzes all of the relevant data that it thinks is correlated to your inquiry, and then uses its judgment to determine what order should I present this information back to you. So it enables you to ask some very sophisticated questions. So for example, I'm interested in AI, who should I talk to? And it'll analyze the data that you give it, and you can control what data it has access to. And it might come back and it says, okay, you need to meet these people because they have AI mentioned in their bio or AI mentioned in their skills. You could also say, I'm interested in AI. What sessions should I attend? And it'll come back to you and it'll say, these sessions look like they cover that topic. And you can then click through and see the results straight away. So it's almost like having Google baked directly into your app. It doesn't allow you a lot of control over how the results look, but the results are highly personalized and the results are very intelligent. So if you haven't seen a demo of this feature and you want access to it, please get in touch. And then we're also working on a brand new event solution, which is going to be, we hope, the one event solution to replace all. At the moment, we have two. We have a single event and a multi-event solution. We're working on one which will combine both of these. It's been our goal for many years to achieve this, and we believe that we're getting very close. So this new event solution will replace all existing event solutions. It'll have an updated design, much better user experience across all devices. And you can see some of the nice looking designs we're intending to bring to it on the right-hand side. You'll be able to have multiple events in one app, and we're going to give you more control over what features are enabled and disabled for each event, which will give people more capabilities to use this for events that differ a lot and maybe go for different durations or require different capabilities. We're going to be including some exciting new features like a redesigned home screen, a new My Agenda, which will give people more control to customize. And we're also going to be introducing some additional session features such as improved polls, chat, and reporting. So that concludes our update without obviously going into any of the information you're going to hear about in a second from my colleagues when they give you the demos. But we've got quite a few questions here. So thanks very much, everybody, for submitting questions. I have 4 minutes, so I'll try to race through these. And as I say, if for some reason we're not able to answer all of your questions today, don't worry. We'll be saving these down, and kind of somebody who works with your account will be getting in touch. So the first question is, will an action also be triggered if a data source record is created, updated via the data integration service and not via its user interface? And that's a great question. And the answer is yes. Actions can be triggered off server-side data source changes, whether it comes from the data integration service, etc., because you'll be able to attach actions to log events. So every time a record is changed in a data source, the action gets logged. So you'll be able to attach to that log, trigger an action. The action will be able to read what's changed and then make an appropriate decision about what task to do. Next question, can the logs and metrics created by Fliplet apps be forwarded to my monitoring environment so I can maintain a single pane of glass over my various websites and apps? E.g., send it to Azure Log Analytics? The answer is yes. On some of our plans, we offer an API that enables you to extract the analytics and log events and pull them into your own monitoring tool, which means you can build your own monitoring alerts and, of course, your own dashboards. If you'd like more information about that feature, get in touch with us. There's a question here is it possible for me to refine my own business metrics for the features in my apps? Metrics will help me to understand the business value of certain aspects of the features I add. So yes, it's very easy actually to define additional metrics that you want to record. So, well, actually, let me kind of clarify. There's additional data points that you can record, and then there's additional metrics. So the additional data you want to record is relatively easy to add additional data points in. So for example, if you want to kind of record certain information in the analytics when the user does a very specific action or a custom action, because maybe you've got a custom feature built into your app, you can easily just fire a very simple JavaScript API call that will just happily log a new event into the analytics for you. In relation to metrics, and I'm interpreting metrics as a calculation or a calculation. That's where we don't currently have the ability, and we're not sure that we're necessarily going to add that capability, because our assumption is, like with a lot of reporting tools at the moment, their interfaces are very, very complicated and they require quite a lot of learning. And what we've already observed in using AI, if you give it the raw analytics data, you can then ask it to do the calculations you want. Now, one of the things that we've already considered is that if people really like this advanced analytics feature, they're probably not going to want to have to ask the same questions over and over again. So one of the things that we're considering is like, how can we then kind of automate AI so that when you are happy with what you're getting from it, you can then tell it, you know, give me this answer every Monday at midday, and it'll just rerun that prompt. It'll extract the information, put it in an email and send it to you. So you don't have to keep coming in and manually running it. But until our customers are kind of happy and have explored the different things that the analytics tool can do, we're not really sure exactly how that feature will work. So, yeah. Okay. There's somebody said woohoo. So that's good. So clearly we've said something that's, it made them happy. Is there a plan to have Power Automate connectors for Fliplet actions? Fliplet already has Power Automate integration, and actually our Power Automate integration is, I believe, fairly generic, although it does predominantly focus on integrating with data sources. So I don't anticipate it would be very difficult to kind of integrate with our Actions API, particularly if you wanted to, say, trigger an action and pass some data through, or have the output of an action maybe trigger Power Automate to kind of have data then written to an internal system. That's a really good suggestion. It's something that I'll pick up with the development team. And a final question, can an app action be triggered if a data source record is updated not via the data source? Yeah. So ultimately, the action will be triggered, and then inside an action, you'll be able to run a query. You'll then be able to pass the data that's returned by the query. So if you want to if you want to trigger an action that determines if something was not done, you could do that as well. You also don't have to trigger actions, as I mentioned, you don't have to trigger actions off something going on in the app or something going on in the logs. You can also trigger them on a schedule. So if you wanted to, you could just every hour tell me if, for example, any data is missing from these types of reports. And if data is missing, let me know, then I'll go and follow up or something like that. So you don't necessarily have to rely on log entries or users to actually trigger your actions. You can also just trigger them every hour if you wanted to.